Let's discuss this story further. I'm now joined by Ethan Tashobia in Kigali, as well as Chris Ochamringa, who speaks to us from Kinshasa. Both are live with us on Africa Live. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Ethan, I'll begin with you. What's been the reaction there in Kigali to the U.S. accusation that Rwanda is in fact the one fueling instability in eastern Congo?
At the swearing in of some government officials about 2 days ago, the president of Rwanda mentioned that, there have been sort of deniers from Burundian government saying that they do not have any forces in eastern DRC that are fighting alongside FDLR and also the Congolese army against M23, but also saying that these Burundian forces have been sort of targeting Kinyarwanda speaking communities of ethnic Tutsi in eastern DRC, and that sort of has led into the latest developments in Washington, where we saw, rather in New York, the UN representative of Rwanda, Martin Goga, appearing before the UN Security Council, saying that the two countries, rather the Rwanda and M23, much as there is no connection, but they are fighting against a common enemy, which is the cleansing of the Kinyarwanda speaking community of Tutsi ethnic in eastern DRC, but also the fact that FDR is involved in this case sort of puts legitimate concerns on Rwanda's security concerns in that part of DRC, and that's why they continue to observe carefully, be close, and they are not willing to uplift their security measures until those concerns are well addressed by the government, as it is stated in some of the agreements already signed there, that is including the Washington Accord. So the implementation of these peace accords will largely depend on how DRC government will end the collaboration between the Burundian forces, the M23, rather the Burundian forces, FDR, the Wazalendo, which have been hard in previous
Well, let's continue this discussion. We seem to have lost Ethan there, and we'll try and get him back. Chris, let me come to you now in neighboring DRC. What's been Kigali's reaction to those U.S. accusations? And also tell us what's the latest in both Uvira and Baraka today.
Well, Maria, life is slowly returning back to normal in Uvira after the seizure by the M23 rebels on Wednesday. People have started opening their shops, they're trading, cars are moving on the streets. Unlike 3 days ago when the M23 rebels have captured it, many people stayed indoors. They were fearing that the rebels would loot their property or kill them. But the leaders of the M23 have told them they're not targeting civilians. They were more interested in the Congolese army and Wazalendo militiamen who fled the area, and they have urged them to go about their businesses normally. So, but the situation is quite different in Baraka. Many people have fled the area, going to Burundi and other parts of the DRC. Now, Baraka is the area where the DRC army fled when the M23 was advancing towards Uvira, and we have heard reports about looting of property of civilians. Many people are very disappointed by this latest situation. Now, the authorities in Kinshasa have repeatedly been saying that Rwanda is the one that is fueling instability in eastern DRC by fighting alongside the M23 rebels. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Therese Kaikwamba Wagner, was attending a meeting of the United Nations Security Council in the US on Friday, and she said that the permanent members of the UN Security Council, the US, UK, France, China and Russia, unanimously passed a resolution known as 2773 in February this year. And it was calling on the M23 rebels to immediately stop fighting, and also calling on Rwanda to stop supporting the rebels and immediately withdraw from eastern DRC. They're saying that is a clear indication that Rwanda has been supporting the rebels, but then nothing has been done. So she was blaming the international community, the UN Security Council, for not taking action to compel Rwanda to stop supporting the rebels. Mahia?
Right, let's go back to Ethan now. Ethan, this does, of course, throw a spanner in the works on the road to peace in the DRC's east, but there have been reports of Rwandan special forces present in Uvira. What is Kigali's position on what is now happening in Uvira?
Rwanda has, in the recent days, denied their support of M23, but they have mentioned in the previous past that they have a common security threat in the Eastern DRC as that of M23, and that includes the FDLR that is fighting alongside the Congolese army and the Burundian forces that were recently mentioned, and they continue to be mentioned, especially after the fall of Uvira. And they're saying that these people are targeting ethnic Tutsis in Eastern DRC, and if they're all persecuted and killed, that could actually lead into an escalation and entering into the Rwandan territory. And that's where that phrase of Rwandan defense measures are being lifted. The defense measures are quite large in what we've had. In the recent past, we've heard about defense measures, but we also had Rwanda deploying heavily along its borders. And if that's the defense measures they're mentioning about, we'll wait to see. But Rwanda says that the security concerns in Eastern DRC are sort of related to those that M23 are fighting for, which is the dignity of the Kinyarwanda speaking community in that part of the area. But also last night, like Chris mentioned, during the UN Security Council meeting last night, the Rwandan permanent representative Martin Ngoga largely outlined the number of deaths that Burundian forces, Wazalendo, FDLR that are blamed for the genocide in Rwanda, have targeted and killed hundreds and thousands of Banyamulenge community, which also speak Kinyarwanda dialect in that part of the area, and are also largely Tutsi and cattle keepers. They have burnt their houses, they have killed thousands of women and children in that area, and they're saying the international community has been largely silent on that part. So that's the common relationship between M23 and Rwanda, and they're saying that if the concerns in that area, especially the collaboration between the Congolese government and the Congolese army with the FDR are not checked, Rwanda is not willing to just watch and stand by and watch.
All right. Thank you both very much for those updates on Africa Live. Ethan Tashobia there in Kigali, as well as Chris Ochamringa speaking to us from Kinshasa. Well, let's keep the conversation going and find out more on this unfolding story. Let's now bring in Dr. Oluwole Ojewale, who is a regional coordinator at the Institute of Security Studies based in Dakar, Senegal. Doctor, thank you for joining us on the program. It has been an interesting week, especially in the wake of that peace deal signed in Washington, as well as the pledges from both leaders on this peace process. What exactly are your thoughts on these U.S. accusations?
Thank you so much for having me. The architecture of the peace making and the agreement that was signed in the U.S. was built on this very shaky ground for the obvious reasons. Anybody who watched that outing knows that even the body language conveyed otherwise. And as the peace signing agreement was going on, shelling and displacement were also taking place simultaneously. So it appears like the umpire was probably just interested in making a statement to add to the supposed long list of places where conflict has been resolved on paper, but not really on the ground.
Right. And how exactly do these M23 rebel gains, specifically taking the town of Uvira, maybe threaten Trump's peace efforts there?
It's not only Trump's peace agreement that is being threatened. Even Kinshasa itself is being threatened for the obvious reason. The entire eastern flank of DRC represents the economic mainstay, the mainstay of the economic of DRC. And that is where you have the coltan and the copper, particularly as they advance towards Katanga. I think the overarching objective is to cut away the economic lifeline of DRC and paralyze Kinshasa in that process. But I'm very, very happy that the United States has now come out strongly to even condemn that act and actually name names in this regard.
Right. And finally, Doctor, this, of course, has been a devastating few days for the people in that region. Looking ahead, is there any hope for DRC people in the East, and what more needs to be done there?
The hope for the people lies in the fact that China, who I'm aware has also stepped out to condemn that, the United States that has condemned this atrocity, must support peacemaking operation. Let them put the boots on the ground. Let them support the United Nations, let them support the African Union to actually put boots and artilleries on the ground that is going to foster deterrence. It is when that red line has been established, then you can now go ahead to go and sign peace agreement, not sign a peace agreement when there's no sustainable peacemaking on the ground.
All right, Doctor, thank you very much for speaking to us on Africa Live. Dr. Oluwole Ojewale, Regional Coordinator with the Institute of Security Studies in Dakar.